AI is culture before it's code. That's gonna make sense in a little bit, but peep game. We all know we bombarded with AI on all levels, on all industries, from social media to the classroom, from the government to healthcare. But what if I told you that AI programming is under this white messianic Christian thing that's producing racist ideology that's based in robots and folks is lost in the sauce of neutrality? AI is culture before it's code. That's gonna make sense in a little bit, but peep game. We all know we bombarded with AI on all levels, on all industries, from social media to the classroom, from the government to healthcare. But what if I told you that AI programming is under this white messianic Christian thing that's producing racist ideology that's based in robots and folks is lost in the sauce of neutrality? AI is marketed as unstoppable, world-changing, and beyond politics, which is a bald-head-ass lie. Its scale and abstraction is being manufactured to feel naturalized, not socially constructed. Stating it simply, these folks is coercing our consent to technocratic authority by using ChatGPT prompts and language models, but they got us twisted. On my pawpaw grave, the current framing discourages democratic debate and ethical scrutiny. Today's main author is Joel Dinerstein. He's an assistant professor of English at Tulane University, where he also teaches an American Studies program. I'll be reading more specifically from Technology and Its Discontents on the Verge of Posthuman that was published in 2006, which almost 20 years ago, but it still has so much relevance, and it's something I've been thinking about when it came to my debate career. AI is not liberatory. It is not a liberatory technology contrary to popular belief, but it is a technology that sustains the status quo to race, labor, and the hierarchy. AI is a culture before it is a code. It is a system of culture that is always asphyxiated on the Western values that pushes Western imperialism. Technology is politics without consent. My argument today is simple. Technology is not neutral, but is a cultural system that embodies and amplifies specific American values that's often to our detriment, especially Black people and really all poor people, and I'm gonna say even white folks, because it gets you to buy into convenience and without thinking about the capitalistic impacts that it has. AI is the latest tech manifested attempt to transcend human fallibility by outsourcing intelligence, creativity, and even ethical decision-making to these damn machines. Before we get into the artificial intelligence, we gotta get into the real intelligence. See, what Dinerstein explains is that the new Adam, like Adam and Eve, the new Adam was young America, the fusion of progress, technology, and religion into a white mythology that continually reinscribes order. The massive social transformation are brought on by the telegraph, railroad, electricity. They created a sense that technology was the white magic that justifies colonialism in many different instances. See, I'm gonna be coming from two other authors, Stephen Cave. He is a British philosopher and a writer and a former diplomat that's known for his work on the philosophy and ethics of technology. I'm gonna be also using this other academic by the name of Dr. Kanta Dahal, and I'm sorry if I pronounced it mispronouncing this, but they're an assistant professor in science communication at the Imperial College in London. And I think that these two I'm using as my academic experts to push the envelope on how we understand AI and to make it in where we can define the phenomenon and make it act in a desired manner. See, these two, they offer three interpretations of the racialization of the intelligent machines as being white. First, that these machines, they transcend the whiteness of their creators, perpetuating itself. When we can think about whiteness as being everywhere and nowhere, as being like the narrator that we get to hear from but kind of never see. Second is that whiteness attributes are ascribed to AI. We see, understand that in the language models. We're gonna get to that later on. And then three, to the extent which AI permits the erasure of people of color from the white utopia, and thinking about how this technology is already used to push racial stereotypes and to further kind of take away from black shit. You know what I'm saying? These two authors simply argue that the way that technology is racialized is something that we should always take attention to, because technology is seen as something that transcends whiteness. or it allows for us to mystify how the people that create these language models also have their implicit bias and microaggressions inscribed into these language models. So when you create this relationship with ChatGPT and you telling them all your deepest and darkest secrets, understand that it's not a neutral piece of content. It's not a neutral machine. We see that Israel just bought out ChatGPT in many different ways. We're not going to be able to impact how you're able to use the data and how you're able to use the language models to get the response that you want. Power is the ability to define the phenomenon and make it act in a desired manner. The phenomenon we define it today is how AI is a driven management in an algorithmic governments that's simply the latest, most pervasive form of applying engineering principles to human society that's seeking to eliminate inefficiencies, which includes ambiguity, dissent, and rest. As technology and AI becomes used more predominantly and replaces more human decision-making, this current trend is heading down the road of white AI purity and utopia that envisions all of those Netflix sci-fi futuristic films where we dealing with apocalyptic type disasters. That's what AI taking us to. As AI does more police work, makes more job decisions, and becomes a central feature of education, we should be more concerned. We should be more concerned that this will function to make all decisions appearing to be neutral while carrying a social morality of white supremacy, patriarchy, and anti-blackness. Because capitalism can dupe us all into doing and believing some nefarious things, can't it? You know it can. Historically speaking, technology has always been the white mythos of salvation, which becomes the justification of global domination. It's the reason why Western culture is so imperialistic, because it's able to justify its dominance by saying, look how much we've been able to advance technology. A lot of people even think this. I even heard this in college. This white boy once told me that if I enjoy using technology, I have to understand that colonization and enslavement was a necessary evil for me to be able to enjoy my iPhone. And said that I'm hypocritical of criticizing colonialism and imperialism if I enjoy the technological advancements that the colonizer or imperializer has brought. Through this idea, we see how white folks are always able to see themselves as being the white saviors and or the people that's always able to push humanity, i.e., humans should be okay with how we dominate humanity because we always is the ones that's advancing humanity. And this is the paradigm that Dennerstein is getting at when we talk about this new Adam age of technology and how technology has always been a tool to justify how Jesus looks at the white folks and gives them all these tools. And we should always, white folks can justify that global domination through technology. And that's how Congo gets ripped. This is how Sudan gets ripped. This is how a lot of the global South gets ripped by white folks being able to justify exploitation by saying, hey, I got this. Yeah, we can do better with your natural resources than you can. Dennerstein in 2006 argues that technology is the American theology. For America, it is not the Christian God, but technology that structures the American sense of power and revenge. The nation's abstract sense of well-being, its arrogant sense of superiority, and its righteous justification of global dominance is now being furthered by AI. And it's, again, the latest manifestation of how technology and religion in America gets justified. Or think about it like this. Technology has long been the unacknowledged source of a European and Euro-American superiority within modernity, just a fancy word for how we think about the world and how it is now. This white dude by the name of Noble calls this ideology the religion of technology, in a work of the same name that traces its European roots to a doctrine that combines the millenarianism, rationalism, and Christian redemption. It's not just social justice or equitable economic distribution that will reduce hunger and greed and poverty, but the fables of abundance and the rhetoric of a technological utopia. The United States is enthralled of this techno-fascist or techno-fundamentalist or techno-autocratic, techno-something, goddamn. Technology is an abstract concept that functions as a white mythology. Yet scholars of whiteness, they rarely engage in technology as a site of dominant white culture practices. The scholars of technology often sidestep the subtext of whiteness within this mythos. Technological superiority creates moral justice for conquest. These white oligarchs think they slick. The promise of AI to solve climate change, inequality, or disease should be viewed with deep skepticism as another iteration of this technological smokescreen they're trying to play us with and really coerce us into this consent. Addressing complex social political problems, that's engineered solutions, thereby avoiding harder tasks of political negotiations. Or I put it like this: you can't cure capitalistic problems with capitalistic solutions. If capitalism is the root of the problem, you a damn fool if you think that capitalism is going to be the root of the solution. You can't use problems, typically to try to fix the solution. That is a very capitalistic mindset that gets us wrapped in exploitation and always keeping the folks on top, making it where they always become powerful at the expense of people at the bottom becoming powerless. The idea of technological superiority was essential to the logic of colonialism. Not only was it used as superior weaponry and transportation that was necessary for large-scale conquest and control of foreign territory, it is also a part of its justification and proof that white Europeans are advanced civilization and the right to rule over others. It's why they call a lot of us primitive and why so many white philosophers believe that the people that were closest to the equator had done the less development in humanity, and believing and thinking that we were lazy and therefore had no technology. So white folks being able to have a dominion over technology is how they've been able to justify having a dominion over the world, i.e. all the parts of the world and all the communities that's stuck in underdevelopment, we're gonna use our technology and our technological understandings of the world to be able to bring them out of their primitive state. It's literally the white man's burden. When you hear about the white man's burden, think about all the various ways that technology going all the way back to the 1500s to now through that white paradigm has always been used to justify, hey, we close to God. God gave us this. We bring in the good news. In many instances, the good news is a technology. It's the reason why I think Dinnerstein using this metaphor about Jesus and religion and God and thinking about it in technology in terms of Western domination, I think it's kind of poetic. That's the reason why I'm making this video. I hope that throughout this academic jargon that I was using in my policy debate career, that it makes sense to you. And let me know in the comment section if you need some more, unpacking or some more explanation, because I can do a live stream over this as well. Education is elevation. Getting back to the script though. Black is criminal, and AI is being used to justify the way that Black is seen as criminal. There's a study done by Charisse King in France that examined AI models and evaluated hypothetical trials where texts were uttered by the defendant in either African-American English or standard American English language models. For y'all to know, all AI is powered by language models that scrapes the internet of data and then filters that data through a language model. A lot of folks get lost in the sauce of feeling like linguistically, you can never speak a color. Before I get back into the script, I want to be very clear. It's a reason why I'm speaking English to you. You don't have to be a linguist to understand that language is always already structured by power. And what access, opportunity, resources you get is always dictated by language. Your ability to speak more like the king is going to always give you much more access and resources in the kingdom of the king. Or speaking about it in terms of just English. The reason why I speak English is because the European colonizers and slavers believed that their language of technology was a much more superior way that can get my ancestors out of being monkeys to being much more civilized individuals. So when I think about language and think about language in terms of language models with AI, I always think that you can do a connecting of the dots between how power is transferred from war to war to war to war, or what Hegel calls a dialect, and thinking about how literally language is always fit to that. As a matter of fact, I hear a lot of historians talk about that if it wasn't for a particular war that English people had won, all of us would be speaking German. Or thinking about the linguistic violence of Roots when he's beating his ass and telling him, your name is not Kunta, it is Toby. That is a linguistic attack. You know what I'm saying? When we talk about Native American schools and they get they mouth washed with soap because they're using their native tongue. This is a linguistic imperialism. So you think about these language models in AI. You are smoking dope and dog food if you believe it is not a relationship and a further legacy of how Europeans use languages to prove and justify, sustain the hierarchy. Just want to be clear with that because that's the reason why I'm doing this. AI right now is taking over the world. There is no way for you to get into the classroom, for you to even get a ticket. You feel me? Without thinking about how AI is being used. Students and teachers are skeptical and thinking about being intentional about how to inscribe AI into the classroom without taking away the prestige of the classroom. It's something for us to really grapple with and sit with as a community and as a society, but definitely as Black folks. It ain't ironic they're using a lot of AI to take away or to benefit from Black language, Black culture, Black figures, even reaching into racial tropes using artificial intelligence. Well, we're talking about fake pictures or fake videos. It's something we should be thinking about culturally because we always talk about how these folks want the Kool-Aid or be out in the Kool-Aid, you don't know the flavor. AI showing you ain't got to know the flavor. You ain't got to know the flavor at all. There's nowhere the Kool-Aid is. You can take the data from it. I would argue that when they say AI is making the world more open and connected and ensuring the future of humanity, that's the latest sales pitch of the religion of technology. This rhetoric is a smokescreen for the underlying pursuits of market dominance, surveillance capitalism, and behavior modification. The majority of white viewers are unlikely to see human-like machines as racialized at all, but simply as conforming to the idea of what human-like means. For non-white people, on the other hand, whiteness is never invisible in this manner. As Bell Hooks reminds us, the so-called colorblindness, an attitude of not seeing race and of presuming that people are contemporary society is no longer disadvantaged on the basis of race. It itself is a narrative that perpetuates white hegemony. When I was in college, I learned that hegemony is just a fancy word for really gangster, get down and lay down. So when you say white hegemony, it's about how you don't have no option. It's get down and lay down. For non-white people, on the other hand, whiteness is never invisible in this manner. As Bell Hooks reminds us, the so-called colorblindness, an attitude of not seeing race, and the presuming that people are contemporary society are no longer disadvantaged on the basis of race itself is a narrative that perpetuates white hegemony. Communities of color frequently see and name whiteness clearly and critically in periods when white folks have asserted their own colorblindness. As a matter of fact, colorblindness is usually deployed to disarm, especially Black folks, from talking about racial domination. And in this instance, when people start talking about AI, they usually try to inscribe a colorblindness concept on the AI so we cannot interrogate the way race is structured by it. I would argue that this falls under the assumption that technology is neutral. Historically, this has been disproven on many different levels. As discussed previously, technology is used to magnify and exercise power, not to get away with it. Objection 2, AI has no consciousness or no intentions. First of all, you have to go watch the Will Smith iRobot. Second, we know that Kavin Dahal argues that the end users of technology are always calculated as white. Man, AI is used to configure a white utopia where what technology is always used to push humanity forward. Anything that's getting in the way of that is bad for humanity. What we need to do is interrogate AI as a racialized system, not just a tool. Don't be lost in the sauce of neutrality, but understanding AI as a racialized system that pushes culture before it pushes technology or before it pushes, data. But second, we want to challenge the myth of technology, challenge the myth that technological neutrality, respectfully, when we start talking about AI in policing, in courts, in education, and in labor. I would encourage y'all to share and discuss this research intentionally, not passively, that brings into dialogue critically of thinking about the political, social, economic implications of how AI is pushing our world forward, and in some instances keeping our world behind. In conclusion, when we start talking about AI, we don't need to only prioritize convenience and only prioritize how it's able to buy us time. That convenience comes at a great cost, not only in terms of policing, not only in terms of education, but also in terms of how the environment is going to be able to live on. When we start valuing being able to get a thumbnail or being able to do a cool ChatGPT prompt over how we get clean water, we understand that capitalism has duped us and that we have bought into technology in this religious smokescreen so much that we ain't even thinking critically. We're not thinking about the air and in the water, that regardless of what color you is or what religion you is or what ideology you have, you need to survive. So while you think about that next chat GPT prompt you're going to use, think about how it's impacting the world around us, and understanding that some people can even argue that, you know, AI at this point is becoming inevitable. I still would argue that you should interrogate that idea. This is another episode of Research Over Me Search. You should subscribe to the Substack to get the access to all the information that was talked about here. And, you know, if you're not able to catch us on YouTube or Substack, you can always follow and always listen on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts at.